I wasn't planning to sit and record a video, and yet there is this kind of insatiable urge in me to share from the space I'm in right now, almost as a living transmission of death, rebirth energy. Because I think in some way my soul wants me to express this while I'm embodied in it so that I can support the process of normalizing it. Of normalizing these cycles that we move through, of dancing between the light and the dark, this world and the underworld. I am in a truly uncharted place in my being. Having acknowledged something from my past that is so sobering, so devastating. So in some ways difficult to digest that my being, my system, my ego structure has fought allowing this realization of what has happened in the past to really land in my being. This week I decided to stop fighting and to begin the process of accepting what has happened, something from my childhood. And I find myself at that level of my being in death, being an embodiment of death. And what I mean by that is sometimes when a cycle is ending or when something in our being or reality is ending, we feel disillusion happening consciously before it collapses and disintegrates. I think for a while I've been feeling that disintegration, the wearing down of my resolve to resist this experience. But so much else was going on that I wasn't consciously aware that I was in the dying phase. This week, on Monday, I sat in ceremony and I decided to let this experience land in my body. And when I did, I was met with death. The same finite nature of death, that there is nothing to contest anymore. There is nothing to push back against or fight against. It's a done deal with death. We can resist dying, and that's often what the ego structure will do. It will resist the dying. It will resist surrendering to truth, which is where I've been probably for most of my life in relation to this experience. But on Monday there was death. There is nothing else to argue. There is nowhere else to hide. Just death. And so I've been in this space this week, and really for quite a while leading up to this, of feeling very sober, feeling very deeply in grief, feeling desolate, feeling like I'm in a winter within my being, just barren. There is a part of me that is in the barren space of inner winter, that is in complete darkness, in the sense that darkness is the void, darkness is the nothingness that comes after the disillusion of the something. The perceived truth, the perceived identity, the perceived way of living that we thought was right. The void comes to clear us of that, to empty us of that, to return us to truth. And that's very alive in me. Curiously, throughout this slow dissolution of an entire identity for me, of an entire ego structure, of an entire way of living, there has also been a very natural and organic flowing of my creative energy and my sexual energy. But really, in that sexual energy really is just life force energy wanting to move. And it's been coming through as very inspired moments of creating, effortlessly channeling, downloading programs, offerings I want to share with people, services I want to offer, visions. And so I've been in this strange space of dancing between death and birth. And it's really quite a natural process when my ego stops fighting against it. I see how natural it is for death to be present and for birth to be present. And I think we have a very hard time with digesting death, whether it's a physical death or an ego death or a spiritual death. Especially in the West, we do not have a comfortable relationship with death. What I'm realizing is the more I descend into my feminine principle, which is really where I've been schooled in, especially during this Venus retrograde, I've been descending into more deeply my feminine consciousness, the truth of my feminine consciousness, how innate it is to me, how much it is where I want to live from, how I want to live. It's so at odds with my conditioning that I have also fought it with some ferocity. And so that Venus retrograde that's happened in the last couple of weeks for me has really been, or months you could say, it's really been a descent into the truth of my essence, which is really very feminine and very attuned to the energetic in a way that I've known on some level, but have also been warring against because it doesn't fit this current patriarchal paradigm. There's no real space for genuine feminine wisdom and ways of being in this world. That is what is being birthed through many of us now. And so I find that as I descend into my feminine principle more, my innately slow, sensual, intuitive, creative, nurturing, expansive, expressive, kind of rich, almost luxurious nature. I feel the luxury of the feminine. I feel how it's such the feminine essence. And of course there are many flavors of the feminine. There are many scents to her. There are many faces of her. There are many faces of the goddess. But the feminine is so ripe. It's so bountiful. It's so rich and delicious as a frequency that I see why it's been such a state of contention for so many for so long on this planet. Because I see how it has the potential to seduce someone that's not in their center. I see how it is so tempting and it's so magnetizing. Feminine energy is such a powerful force. And I'm only just beginning to truly accept that and awaken it within my being. And I'm seeing that with that comes a natural acceptance of death and rebirth. Because the feminine is cyclical. The feminine is not linear like the masculine. The feminine is a spiral, an unweaving, an unfurling, a blossoming, a dance of energy and motion always. And with that innately comes death and rebirth and death and rebirth and death and rebirth. And I see with my Kundalini awakening how in the last 4 years I've been schooled in death, rebirth, death, rebirth, death, rebirth, and the revolutions of this cycle get quicker and quicker. And what I'm finding now is that they collapse and happen simultaneously. So now I'm in death energy, mourning, grief, loss of innocence, loss of an identity that I've had for 30 years based on a life that did not include this, the acknowledgement of this trauma, death. And I also find myself effortlessly being the weaver of the new. I find myself effortlessly connecting to an energetic knowing of abundance. And I'm also realizing that this is also feminine territory, that the feminine is a naturally abundant energy. If we look at the earth and see that the earth is the most tangible expression we have of that, when we're in nature, you know, walk through a park, through a jungle, and we feel her aliveness, we feel how ripe and abundant and beautiful, overwhelmingly so, the mother essence is, earth is, the feminine expression is. I feel how, yes, of course, abundance is my birthright. Of course, abundance is my true nature. And the only reason I wouldn't be connected to that is if I've been denying my true nature. And so I'm in this strange liminal phase where I'm dancing between a 3D reality, which reflects who I was or who I have been. And I also feel a non-physical, you could say 5D, but a non-physical reality that is vastly more evolved than my current experience. I see, feel, sense, know that I have now outgrown this expression of life for me, these circumstances, that amount of money in my bank account, this level of material struggle and scarcity. I see how this is no longer a match. And I'm in that liminal phase of knowing that this is part of the death, that not only am I grieving for my inner child and her experience, I'm grieving with that the death of an entire life that I've built around being that person who didn't acknowledge all of her. And now as that's collapsing, I see that the disillusion of this life around me and how I'm living now is also in process. No physical, like, big changes happening yet, but I see that it's slowly unfolding. I feel the vibrational shift, and I'm feeling how the non-physical is just as real as the physical reality. And this is the gift of the feminine, that she dances between that which is veiled to those whose third eyes are closed, the non-physical realms, the etheric plane, and also this physical plane. And I'm seeing how this is the journey we're being asked to make, to traverse two worlds, if you like, to traverse two realities. A very form-based, tangible, seemingly solid reality, and the knowingness of a non-physical reality, which is just as real and in fact seeds all that we see in this physical reality. And actually I see in my system how I'm being invited by my soul, by Mother, Father, God, to create a shift in my being, where I no longer operate reactively to this 3D form reality, but actually recognize that this 3D form reality is a consequence of the non-physical and not the cause of what happens in the non-physical. It's not this is not causative. This is an effect of the non-physical. And I'm seeing that the feminine wisdom innately knows that the energetic is the birthplace of all realities and all potentials. And I feel, alongside this grief and this death and these natural creations that are moving through me, that are being birthed, I feel a reality I cannot yet see. I feel a version of myself, a more embodied, a more unified version of myself that is currently being anchored and integrated through this death and rebirth portal that I'm in, that does not correspond to this current version of my reality. And that version of me is aware of her naturally abundant nature, and it's reflected in all things around her. But I'm not quite there yet. I'm still in the process of anchoring that. And so this is the dance between death and rebirth, between the form and the formless. And it really comes down to deep trust in our true nature. So I look now, for me, finances are the biggest mirror for this. I look at my bank account. I think I have like £45 in my account with no income streams that are fixed. And so there are two realities playing out simultaneously. There is the 3D mirror at this particular moment in time, where I have £45 and no known ways of how I'm going to create, generate, attract, become more abundant. And there is the aspect that is still in fear, that wants to respond reactively to that 3D presentation of lack and says, I've got to go out and hustle and create and do something and push and push and push and struggle and strive. How are we going to pay this? How am I going to have enough fuel to drive to this family event that's happening on Saturday? When I'm in this deep death energy and all I want to do is collapse. All I have the energy to do is collapse. I don't have the energy or the will or the desire to hustle and create, when what my system needs is deep surrender and deep rest in this knowing of all that I've been in denial of within myself, to process this big trauma. And so there is that reality, and there is also a non-physical reality that I feel, which is just as real, but I can't see it and I can't grasp it, and so it's harder for the ego mind to process. But I see with my third eye, and I feel in my heart and with my whole being this other reality that says, can you trust? Can you trust that there is no lack? That your energy is always directing you to abundance. Can you ask your heart where your energy is needed and where it wants to flow? And can you trust that that continues to be an abundant stream for you? Can you trust that the £45 you have right now is not going to be all you ever have? Can you trust that there is not only one source of income or stream of revenue, that it's not just you having to hustle? Can you trust your abundant nature? Can you trust who you really are? Can you trust who you really are? Can you actually allow yourself to sit in the knowingness of who you really are, beyond this compelling 3D presentation, which makes you believe you're a human body and that this is all there is? Can you trust that you know that that's not ultimate truth? And maybe I need to make a separate video on this, but I feel that this is really the transition from 3D to 5D that people are talking about. It is really moving to an energy awareness system almost. It's like moving from mental awareness being our primary way of relating to the world, to energy awareness. And those of us that are highly sensitive, that are operating from the feminine principle, that are attuned to the non-physical, we're being asked to lead the way in this unfolding of what will be the new earth paradigm. The way in which humanity will relate to its reality will be from the energetic, because we are moving closer to truth. So it's only natural that our limited ways of experiencing reality, i.e. only through the five senses and only through the 3D, that's collapsing. So that's dying too. And so, again, there is another death and rebirth happening. The death of the self that only worked within the five sense perception system, and the birthing of a greater awareness. And this is not just happening for me, this is happening for humanity. And I know that many of you are on this consciously moving through this process right now too. It is a birthing of a greater awareness, a heightened awareness, a more integrated and unified awareness of our multidimensionality. And so, I mean, this is like 20 minutes. I don't even know what I've said. I don't even know if I'm going to share this. But I wanted to share because this is what's real. This is what's true. That I am a human just like you, moving through trauma and physical hardship and uncertainty and nervous system dysregulation and fears and self-limiting beliefs and karma. And also, just like you, I am much more than my humanity. I am soul. I am source, expressed through soul, expressed then as the human. That is not limited in the same ways that this human vehicle is limited. That knows abundance in the way that the human can't perceive. That knows love in a way that the human struggles to open to. And this new earth is really, maybe you've seen the images of like two worlds, and people have asked, are there going to be two separate planets as we birth the new earth, and some stay in 3D, some stay in 5D? No. I'm seeing clearly how the birth is happening right now of the new earth. It's happening through us. It's a consciousness. And it is holding the multidimensionality and being bridges for that multidimensionality, which I've spoken about in the mission video on my page, on my channel. But I'm deepening in my understanding of this, and I'm seeing how absolutely essential to this process, to the healing of humanity, is the feminine principle. And I'm seeing that my work is asking me to be an embodiment of this principle and to move through very challenging earthly initiations so that I have an embodied roadmap of how to navigate this earth plane from the feminine consciousness, anchored in love, not through problem and solution masculine consciousness. I'm not saying that that's wrong, but it needs to be tempered with the holding, the softness, the nourishment, the wildness, the allowing that comes with the feminine principle. That is why we are in such extreme states of dissonance on this planet, because we have not had the balance, we have not held the balance, we have not integrated the balance. And so how on earth can we expect it to be reflected in our reality when we are not it ourselves? This is all a reflection of us. When we shift, the earth will shift, humanity will shift. And so I think I want to end with just, if you are on this journey, you're on my channel, I'm assuming you're on this journey in some way, shape or form, consciously or unconsciously, can you trust what you can't see? That is the Divine Mother's invitation to you. That is the Goddess's invitation. That is the feminine face of God's invitation to you. Can you trust what you cannot see? When you close your eyes and you allow yourself to descend into body awareness, and you start to feel beyond your physical body, and you feel the vastness of the space behind your closed eyes, you are innately aware of a universe within you. You cannot see that universe with your third dimensional sight, but you can feel it, and you can know it, and you can be it. That is the shift. And I will make a separate video, I think, on the energetics of the new earth, because I think that this is really essential for our shift as a humanity. But for now, I wanted to share a very real, a very raw, a very alive transmission about the nature of death and rebirth, and to normalize it and to dissolve any notion of separation between me and my audience about me being some spiritual teacher or guide or whatever people may perceive me to be, and that in somehow I am different, separate to, above, below anyone else. I am just another expression of the one, acting, reflecting back to you your own knowingness of who you are. And for me, that comes hand in hand with authenticity. That comes hand in hand with embodiment. I am an embodiment guide. That is the feminine way. The feminine way is embodiment. So I teach from a space of being in it, not conceptually knowing of it, but feeling it, living it, breathing it. That's the feminine way. So I think that the best way for me to teach is when I'm in these spaces, or when I'm deeply embodied in the space, because you will feel it, even if you don't understand the words, or you're not listening to the words, or, you know, there's something else going on. You will feel beyond conceptually understanding or hearing what I'm saying. You will feel it if it's a truth for you to realize and actualize at this time. And an honoring to anyone else who is in this living experience of dying whilst alive, of which all of us do, again, consciously or unconsciously. But if you are in it and you are choosing the descent, if you are choosing the death because you know that it will lead to a greater birthing of your true nature and reality, I honor you. I honor you, because this work of choosing to die in surrender to something greater, in surrender to a greater vision, a greater beingness, a greater expression of the one, is no easy feat. It's not easy. But it is God's work. It's the goddess's work. It's why we're here. And I will end this transmission by just reminding anyone on my YouTube channel who sees this that I am running a retreat in Morocco with one of my most dear soul sisters on the 24th of September. We do have space available if you feel the call to join us. It's called Reset and Rewild. I think partly the reason why so much of this is coming to a head for me now is because I think I will be very empty for that retreat so that I can be a channel. I think I'm being emptied of false constructs so that I can be a conduit for some very potent healing work. I see the divine plan in all of this. I see the embodied pathways. I see the roadmap that Spirit has for me that I can't see, but I can feel it. I know why I've been through all these initiations. I know why I have to be teetering on the line of scarcity, survival, poverty, and why I've been in this space for 30 years, because I'm not the daughter of a wealthy family. I'm the daughter of an immigrant mother. I'm the daughter of a very unwell man, both of who experienced a lot of poverty. I am here to show every person that finds my work, who has been in similar situations, that you can change it. I'm here to give hope, I think, to be an embodiment of a living embodiment and transmission of hope, I think, because I have been in those dark places myself, and I am with the ferocity of God's will, not my own will, determined for this to not be my future, for their past, for what they've been through, their conditioning, their trauma, their karmic baggage. I'm determined for that to not be my future. I'm determined to find another way that is anchored in deeper truth than the truth that they got to experience. And so if you feel the call to join us in Morocco, I will leave the information in the description box. It's not a money thing for me, it's a genuine call, because I know that part of my service is to support the awakening and remembrance of others. And in my contraction about sharing my offerings, there's partly a fear of I don't want to be selling to people, and it's all of this conditioning. And actually I'm dimming my service when I don't let people know about transformational experiences that I help to facilitate, that are going to support their awakening, because their awakening is going to support other awakening. It's not about me. So if this calls to you, the information is in the description box. Thank you for being here with me in this very strange space that I find myself dancing in. Sending love to you all. Until next time, many blessings and much love.